Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Speak On It. I am your boy, R.W. Coolins. First and foremost, giving honor to God who allows me to come at you in this manner on a weekly basis. How's everybody doing out there? 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. That's what we do here every Saturday morning on the Speak On It show. rwcoolins.com is the website. You can go there. You can go to any social media platforms, RW Coolins. You can find the shows there. Subscribe, like, share, do what you do. Speak on the show with your boy, R.W. Coolins. 844-904-2665. 844-904-2665. No matter what the situation is, let your voice be heard. All we ask is say what you mean what you say. We come as friends, believe as family. That's what we do here on the Speak on the show every Saturday morning. We're also broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube this morning, live. So, you can go to the website, you can go to the YouTube, you can go listen to all the old shows, download, do what you do. We also R.W. Coolins on Facebook is where we're broadcasting live. So share, like, subscribe, do what you do with all the other places you may venture to do with other folks, other talk shows, whatever you do with them, reach out and do it for a brother. All right. I missed last week. I apologize to everybody. It was a last minute thing that, I got up, I was ready to do the show and something came over me and said, you wasn't ready. Not you. I wasn't ready. I wasn't fully prepared to do the show last week. So I didn't do it. I didn't get a chance to send anything. I'll just change the date for today. So that's where we are. That's where we are. These things come up. It happens. This is not my full-time job, but I enjoy doing it. But I just needed to take a break last week. So it's an unscripted Saturday, y'all. Unscripted, where we come off, we just talk about some things that's going on in the community, in the world, in our lives as a whole. So we're going to get into this. You got a comment already. Good morning, Battle. My man. Appreciate you, my brother. Thanks for the support. Thanks for the continued support, my brother. All right. So, let me start off with this. Because there's some things that I've noticed that I've been seeing through social media platforms, through reading some things that didn't sit well with my soul. And I want to say the things that I've read are ignorance at its best. Ignorance at its best. And one of the things this week we all seen, the tragedy in Tennessee, the school shooting in Tennessee that killed 6 people. 6 innocent people were killed. Big Al, good morning from a dreary and overcast Alabama. Appreciate it, man. Hope y'all stay safe out there. I know there's some tornadoes, hurricanes, whatever was going on down there in Arkansas, that area, maybe going across. Y'all be safe out there for all those people affected. You're in our prayers and everything like that. Melvin Jackson, good morning, my brother. Appreciate you. Good morning. Kevin Banks, my man. What's going on, my brother? Appreciate you. All right. As I was saying, There was a school shooting in Tennessee. 6 people lost their lives. 6 innocent people lost their lives. And when I was perusing through Facebook, Twitter, all the different social media platforms I frequent, just look, peruse, I noticed that there was not, they are still going to do nothing about the gun reform. True statement. It's too much invested in money for them to do anything to reform this gun control thing. But I digress. Let me get back. But as I was perusing, the main concentration of what happened in Tennessee had nothing to do with the victims. The concentration was on the sexuality or the transgender person who chose to do this. And then there was a concentration on what type of gun. Oh, and it was said it wasn't an AR-15. It was let me get it right. It was a carbine type gun, which fires pistol rounds, not the same type of rounds as an AR-15. Now let's hold up there for a minute. As I mentioned from the beginning, and everybody knows, in Tennessee, and this week, we've seen a school shooting again. And I say again. But in the same breath, we got people defending their gun rights by saying that the type of gun that was used in this school shooting is different than the gun used in other school shootings because it wasn't an AR-15. It was a carbine type gun, which fires pistol rounds rather than automatic rounds from an AR-15. 6 people died. This is the concentration. 6 people were senselessly killed. This is the concentration. 6 people were gunned down in a school where they're supposed to go for education and learning and be safe. And the sexuality of the shooter and the type of gun the shooter used are the headlines. In some cases, in some people. What are we doing? And when I say we, I don't mean we as just us listening on this show today. I say we as a people in this United States of America who don't take into account that we are all human living beings. And when things like this happen, we tend to gravitate to whatever we feel our freedoms are. If we can, good morning, sis, appreciate you. Whatever our freedoms are. And then we get these caveats in there about, well, it wasn't this, it was that, this wasn't important, this is important. And we want to highlight what type of gun. We want to highlight the sexuality of the perpetrator. But no highlight on the senseless killings that continue going, because here's my thing. And I never do comparisons, but I always give you facts. If this was a mass shooting in Chicago, they would concentrate on the amount of deaths that have happened in Chicago from gang killings and everything else over and over again, and they were associated with black on black crime, but they never get to the root problem of saying we have a gun problem in the United States of America, a gun control problem. Let me get it right, a gun control problem in the United States of America. Because it always goes back to who was doing the shooting rather than what the shooting was done with is not the concentration. I also seen something that was very much ignorance at its best. Where you had the guy that was the Q shaman, the guy that was in the Capitol during the insurrection with the horns on his head and the big fur coat on, whatever he had on, everybody knows who I'm talking about. Well, he was supposedly released this week or next week. He's going to be released into a halfway house. They're letting him go after he served his time and everything like that. And I see a lot of people in my perusing upset that he served this amount of time. He was wrongfully accused. He was wrongly convicted. He was wrongly this, wrongly that. And I'm not going to give you a comparison, but I'm going to give you facts again. Where's the uproar from people about these African-American men who are serving 20 and 30 years, who were wrongly convicted of a crime, who were, went through the whole process and given 30, 40 years. As we heard the other day, the man had 400 years. Served 20 something of those years, but I don't hear any of these people going to the shaman's defense, going to the defense of these brothers who have been wrongly convicted for years and years and years. There's another story. There was another story that I just seen, I think last night as I was perusing through the news and everything, where another wrongfully convicted African-American male in New York was wrongfully convicted by an 18-year-old at the time. She said he raped her or whatever. He wasn't the guy. She said he wasn't the guy at first, but then she changed the story later on. He went to jail for a certain amount of time. Now he's being released, and he's suing for $5.5 million. She comes out and says, I was wrong by identifying you as the person that raped me. Not comparisons. These are facts. So when I go to these social media sites and I see this ignorance at its best, where people are defending these type things, and we're going to get into some more defending of ignorance as we go. But I just want people to understand that everybody has an opinion. Don't get me wrong. I have no problem with everybody having an opinion. But let your opinion be fact-based rather than emotionally based. We get too much caught up in this emotion. And here's the other part of it is most of us, many of us, probably all of us, don't know that shooter that killed the 6 people. Don't know the victims. Don't know the victims' families. So we can't understand what they may be going through. The person that was released from jail, we don't know him. We know he was in the Capitol. But those other people that have been convicted for 30, 40 years and been spending their time in jail and never were given a fair trial and everything that are being released, we don't know them, but we can have compassion for them because they were wrong convicted, depending on who you are. But when we talk about the insurrection and these people having to face trial, there's always this rush to the fact of they shouldn't be convicted. But, and I'm going to use a comparison at this point. If those same people that went into the Capitol came into your home, how would you feel? Would you want them arrested? Would you want them convicted? So you defend something as big as overthrowing the government. But if it was your home, you would feel completely different. If you were wrongly convicted of a crime and served 20 years and then they found out that you didn't do it, you would feel differently about the system that put you there. All I'm saying is people need to stop being so ignorant and looking at these things emotionally and look at these things for what they are, the facts. And the facts are this. People need to step back for a minute and understand that school shootings is nothing new. When we get to the point of being upset about school shootings in the beginning, and because they've happened so many times that we've gotten to the point now we're differentiating what type of gun was used compared to another gun, when we're differentiating what the sexuality of the perpetrator was compared to another shooting, we've got a problem. We have a problem. When you come to the defense of someone who was in the Capitol trespassing and he goes to jail for being in there and doing what they did, compared to a person who was somewhere in the vicinity but didn't rape a woman and he does 40 and 50 years, and then they release him and they tell him he can get no retribution for them putting him in jail wrongfully and nobody's held accountable. And we uplift this person that tried to overthrow the government, but still look at this black man like he's nothing. There's an issue. Now, you may not agree, but I'm giving you facts. This is what we're dealing with. Ignorance at its best. Ignorance at its best. I'm a little riled up, y'all. I'm a little riled up. Y'all bear with me. Let's take a break. Ooh, sir. I had to calm down a little bit, y'all. Let me start off with this in this next segment. I'm gonna rearrange something here. Let me go to something very important because I have this stuff written out. I'm changing some things around because I'm on a roll right now. Since we want to talk about ignorance. Y'all know who these people are? Does anybody know who these people are? You're looking at District Attorney Alvin Bragg, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis, and New York Attorney General Letitia James. What do they all have in common? Other than them being Black, African American, other than them being in positions to uphold the laws as written against anyone, not picking and choosing. What do all three of these people have in common? What they all three have in common is the fact that they are in the process of investigating a former president, a citizen at this point. The former plays a part in political. A citizen is who he is. Let's clear that up off the start. He is a United States citizen. He is no longer president. He is no longer in a political position. He is a citizen, just like you and me. The only thing that differentiates him is that a lot of these things were identified during his presidency. 4-year term. It's over. And as we all heard, we said that, they said in the news and they've been mentioning that he decided to announce his candidacy for running for election in 2024 to try to push off these investigations, to try to hinder these investigations, because everything we've heard this week from what District Attorney Alvin Bragg did when he decided to, and I'm gonna get into that in a minute. Let me back up for a minute. When former president, I'm not gonna say former no more. When President Trump, and I'm not gonna say President Trump no more. When Donald J. Trump was identified to be indicted by Alvin Bragg, he's trying to persuade, preclude, interfere with the prosecution, with the investigations that these three people are doing. Mind you, 3 educated, 3 worthy, 3 duly appointed members of the judicial system who are now in their positions being called everything from racist to being bought off by George Soros to being called anything and everything you can think of for doing their job. And most of those people who I mentioned in the Ignorance at its Best segment are the ones who are identifying these 3 appointed, educated, Black African-American people to uphold the justice in the system that is created, that we're held accountable for, but other folks feel they shouldn't be. Look at those 3 beautiful people. And I don't say beautiful just because they look like me. I don't say beautiful because of what they're doing as their job. I say beautiful because to me, everyone is beautiful until you show and portray your ugliness, which is what is happening to these three people right now. No one who has a problem with these three people and what they're doing have taken into account that none of them can have anything to go against Donald Trump unless the evidence shows that they have something to go against Donald Trump. Now, I say that with a caveat because in most cases that we've talked about on this show, somehow, some way, the evidence has been swayed to convict these people that have been serving 20, 25 years for crimes they didn't commit. Let me just put that cursor out there. However, these three, and I can attest to this, these three will do everything according to the rule of law for the simple fact of what they look like. And when I say that, I mean it as such to say, as African Americans, blacks, when you're in a position of authority, when you're in a position that you have some type of reign over certain systems or things like that, you have to be either equal to or above board what the requirements are for that position, number one, to get there, and number two, to stay there. And integrity plays a big part in what they're doing right now. Doing the right thing, even when no one's looking. And because of this, I will say this. You've never heard of Alvin Bragg. You never heard of Fannie Willis. You never heard of Letitia James. Before they had to, and I'm going to say had to, start delving into these investigations of Donald Trump. These are three. This is a district attorney, three district attorneys, and two district attorneys and an attorney general. Very rarely do we even know who these people are in these positions across the board. These people have been plunged into the spotlight because of who they're investigating and what the investigation is about. And I want to put this out there. This week, Alvin Bragg decided to indict Donald Trump. There's 34 charges, excuse me, and no one knows what they are at this point. They will be announced on Tuesday, is what they say. But I want to step back for a minute before we get to him being indicted and what the charges could be and what they were looking at. And I want to break down to you, because I don't think this is something that's being discussed. And I think it's very relevant that we understand this going forward. Because all three of the ones you see here, sat grand juries to present the evidence, to see if the evidence showed that this person could be put on trial with the evidence that they have to show that everything was not on the level it should be. And that's called a grand jury. And we hear all these people talking about wrongfully being accused, wrongfully evicted. Alvin Bragg is paid by Soros to do this, and Fannie Willis is this and that, and Letitia James is this and that. We hear all these different narratives about what they are, in spite of the positions that they hold. But the one thing they try to gloss over in each one of these situations is they cannot do anything unless a grand jury votes that they have enough to go to trial. Let's just be honest here. See, this is what they're glossing over so you don't understand it. So what I'm going to do today is let you understand what a grand jury is all about. A grand jury is a body of 16 to 23 people who are tasked with determining whether there is enough evidence to move forward with the case. The prosecutor is in charge of providing evidence to the grand jury, often in the form of witness testimonies and documents. Stop right there. So you have to have the witnesses and documents presented to a grand jury between 16 and 23 people, and all this evidence is presented to them. Now, mind you, I did see one caveat in there that whoever's the defense is, their lawyers, their attorneys, and that person does not sit in front of this grand jury. However, the district attorney brings in these witnesses to testify to what they know, be questioned about what is being charged, and they present the evidence accordingly. Mind you, Donald Trump was given a chance to sit in front of the district attorney, sit in front of the grand jury. He chose not to. He had an opportunity to, he chose not to. Let's keep it clear. James Battle, grand jury in New York has 23 people. Yes, sir. 16 to 23 is what it says. They had a total of 23. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate that. So this grand jury, and it says when a grand jury issues an indictment, it means they believe, not Alvin Bragg, not Fannie Willis, not Letitia James. When a grand jury issues an indictment, it means they believe there is enough evidence to formally accuse someone of a crime. An indictment at its core is just a charging document. This is saying that they have enough to charge this person who is under investigation with a crime. Charge, not convict, charge. See, there's process to this that they don't want you to know about. This is a jury of your peers, people like you and me, listening to the evidence, listening to the witnesses, and coming to a conclusion of whether we can't or we feel or we don't feel that there's enough evidence to charge the person with said crime. And they have an opportunity to file it under seal or to put it out there in the open off the top. This one is under seal, which means you won't hear about this maybe until Tuesday when they book Donald Trump in New York for these charges. When they bring him up on the charges, read him his rights, get his fingerprints, book him, take his photo, whatever they got to do, all the things that other people that have gone to jail have done before, he got to do it. Because he's being charged, not yet convicted. Purpose of the grand jury. The grand jury's purpose is to decide whether or not the prosecution has presented enough evidence to formally charge someone. They're not there to decide whether the person has proven guilty. They're not there to prove if the person is guilty. They're there to decide whether the charges that brought about a prosecution is enough evidence to take it to a trial. Have they talked about that at all? Just asking. The burden of proof for the prosecutor to obtain an indictment for the grand jurors to vote an indictment is significantly lower than that after trial. The burden is and will continue to be on the prosecutor to prove whatever case they may have beyond a reasonable doubt, and the indictment is not that proof. So basically what they're telling you is the district attorney or the prosecutor brings all this evidence up, he ain't gonna put it all out there because he got to keep his ace in the hole. He's going to give enough evidence for this grand jury to look at and say, you know what? I think you got a good case here. Let's go ahead and vote to send this and go ahead and charge this person and bring him in, and let's see what happens in trial. Another trial, which will be in front of your peers. Grand jury is a jury of your peers. A jury trial is a trial amongst your peers. In New York State, a person cannot face a felony trial unless they've been indicted by a grand jury. Very important. Felony trial. If convicted, Donald Trump will be convicted of a felony. He will be a felon. No ifs, no ands, no buts. But you can't do that unless you do a grand jury trial first. Who serves on the grand jury? In New York State, anyone who is a U.S. citizen, at least 18 years old, and a resident of the county where they are serving can be a juror. They must also understand and communicate in English and cannot be convicted of a felony. New York courts have 23 members to a grand jury, with one person acting as a judge-appointed foreperson and one as the assistant foreperson. The foreperson of the grand jury administers the oath to each testifying witness. The grand jury also selects a secretary for record-keeping purposes. Jurors may serve anywhere from 2 weeks to over 3 months, depending on the case and county. They'll hear many cases over this time. So, mind you, this may not be the only case they're hearing. They may hear many cases. This is the most high-profile one. According to the administrative office of U.S. courts, these three groups are exempt from federal jury service. Members of active duty armed forces, members of professional fire and police departments, active public officers of federal, state, and local governments cannot serve and will not serve on a grand jury. These are the things that we don't hear about. We don't hear what the grand jury is made of. We don't hear about how the grand jury is selected. We don't hear about how the grand jury came to the point of indicting a person. That's why I'm giving it to you this morning, because I don't want all this propaganda that's flying around from all these politicians that support Donald Trump, from your friends and relatives or whatever who may be supporters of Donald Trump. The bottom line is these three people that I have up on this screen cannot do this by themselves. They present through the prosecutor the evidence. A jury of our peers that are appointed to the grand jury are the ones that make the decision on whether this should go to trial and whether the person should be indicted to face trial. That's it. So get out your mind where these people are feeding you this fluff, as I like to say, this fluff. And the reason, in my opinion, that they're leaving this out of this equation is strictly because of how they look. There's never been a time that I recall that you would hear anybody say anything about a grand jury being seated and the district attorney or the attorney general until now. The only attorney general you ever heard of, Merrick Garland, Bill Barr, there's a couple other ones, Eric Holder. Names jump out because they were at that level. Normally at the state level, you don't know who these people are. You don't care who these people are. But in this case, in these three cases, think about it. Alvin Bragg, 34 counts, 31 to 34. I can't remember the exact number. 31, 34 counts. Business counts is what they're saying. Fraudulent business is what they say. Now, we won't know the facts until we get to Tuesday if they release it. Fannie Willis sat a grand jury about the corruption that went on with the election interference in Georgia. Grand jury sat. Letitia James has already convicted the Trump organization for fraudulent tax evasion, different things like that. And now the case she has in front of them is she's civil fraud suit against Donald Trump and them, $250 million, and him nor his children to be able to practice any business or have any businesses in the state of New York. Grand jury sat for all of them. Grand jury made a decision that they should be indicted or tried. Some of them are still ongoing. Georgia, Letitia Williams. But there's a process that a lot of these pundits are leaving out of the equation. Now, I'm not no lawyer. I have nowhere close to having a law degree. but I know how to read. I know where to go to find information. And I know the fact of when I'm lying, which I don't try to do, but I know if I'm lying, if I got diabetes, new word, I just heard somebody say that. If I have diabetes, people gonna call me out on it. But you got some people that are so gullible that they believe everything that these people are presenting in front of them. Everything. Alvin Bragg, Manhattan's first black district attorney. Fannie Willis. Where'd he go? I had all this stuff wrote down. I'm sorry, y'all. Fannie Willis. 51-year-old Democrat whose father was a Black Panther who also worked as a defense attorney. So she's not new to this. She's true to this. She chose to do this because it's in her bloodline. Tisha James, first woman and first Black person to serve as a New York Attorney General. These people didn't just wake up yesterday in these positions. They've worked to get here. And we have people out here to try to diminish their accomplishments. Not because they don't know what they're doing, because they're about accountability. And when you try to hold people accountable, the pushback is awesome from that side, from those that don't agree, Now, this other part, I want to touch on. Sharice Joseph, good morning. I want to appreciate you. There was this article that said that there's a connection between the violent protests and Trump's racially coded language. In his speech about Black prosecutors like Bragg, James, and Willis, he uses racist language because in the same breath that he's saying this is reverse racism, he is also telling the supporters, I want you to go to the streets and protest. This reporter also noted that Trump's voters carried racist symbols like Confederate flags and swastikas while taking to the streets. It says Donald Trump has always, especially since he's been president and post-president, used this type of language whenever he has to talk about a person of color that he doesn't like, but especially when it comes to Black people. Congressman Plaskett said Trump's injecting race into cases that ultimately have nothing to do with race is his attempt to draw attention to the fact that these are Black people that are trying to bring a white man to justice. The former prosecutor or New York prosecutor added, it's not really a dog whistle. It's just straight up trying to call a clarion call to individuals who are in fact racist to remind them of that. See, I don't make this up. These are facts. I just give you facts. Trump's focus on Bragg's race is part of a broader pattern of behavior toward any Black person he sees as his potential enemy. This is another attack on a Black person in power in the same way we saw him go after Black journalists, Black lawmakers, and now he's going after Black attorneys as well. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. While Trump uses race, racist language, and racist overtones to divide people, the focus for Bragg and the other prosecutors probing the former president should be about the rule of law. Alvin Bragg's one and only charge is to pursue justice without fear or favor, and he has to remain focused on that mission and that mission alone. Now, he's going after these three prosecutors here, these three attorney generals, these three law-abiding citizens in positions to uphold law. But I want you to think about this when I say this. Donald Trump went after former President Barack Obama, saying he wasn't a citizen. You know, the birth certificate thing, all that. We remember. Come on. Don't act like you don't. He went after Benny Thompson, who sat on the January 6th committee, investigation committee. He was the head. of the January 6th Investigation Committee. He went after him. Maxine Waters, he went after her when she was a vocal opponent of him when he was running for president, when he got in to be the president. You seen her on all the channels screaming, yelling, talking about what he was doing and what he was trying to do and everything. We're talking about career politicians that just so happen to be people of color, Black, African American. It's crystal clear. Crystal clear. If you choose to see it. Oh, stuff ain't working today. What's going on? Technical difficulties, y'all bear with me. So there was another thing that I seen, and then we're gonna wrap this up for the day because I can't spend too much time on it because it starts affecting me. Let's just be real. It starts affecting me when I sit back and I see where racism plays a part in the fact that you have people in political positions or authority, people in positions of authority, that these dog whistles come out to make them feel or make you think that they're not worthy to be where they are. But they've gone to the same schools, they've gotten the same education, they've fought the same battles to get to where they are. And now you have people out here that want to minimize their accomplishments to fit the narrative to make you feel or make us see that they may not be worthy for the position they're in. Because when then people start talking about affirmative action is while they're there. And the only reason they're there is because of this. And people would say, well, the only reason Barack Obama became president because he was Black, and all the Black people voted for Barack Obama because he was Black. Have you ever heard anybody say that about a white candidate? Just a question. Have you ever heard anybody say that they only voted for him because he was white? No. But I digress. Lindsey Graham. Excuse me. Lindsey Graham was on an interview the other day after the indictment came down with Sean Hannity, I think it was. And in this interview, he actually was coming to tears about this indictment against Donald Trump. Tears, mind you. And this is what he said. He said, you have got a misdemeanor that has been made a felony. Nobody in the history of New York City has been prosecuted under this theory except for Donald J. Trump. This case will fall like a cheap suit under legal scrutiny. Stop right there for a minute. You have got a misdemeanor that has been made a felony. That there alone tells me that he knows, as well as the people watching, as well as the person that was interviewing named Sean Hannity, that a crime was committed. You have got a misdemeanor that has been made into a felony. So if you're identifying the fact that this is a crime, whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony, it's a crime, what you up there crying about? Because my thing is this. When you see these politicians or you see people that you know that get upset because there's somebody being committed of a crime or convicted of a crime or being put on trial for a crime, and they're saying, well, it shouldn't be tried at this level, it should be tried at this level, or why are the charges so high and everything. Have you ever noticed, and I've noticed this in my time, that anytime someone has committed a crime, we may know of one thing they've done. Thank you, Phil McCurdy. Appreciate you, bro. We may know what they've done and understand it. But when it comes time to go and they start putting out what they're charging this person with, it goes from the one thing we knew to about 15 other things that they can add on. So my question to Lindsey Graham would be, why are you so upset about something going from a misdemeanor when they can see they can take it to a felony? That's what they're doing. If there's 30, just think about this for a minute. If there's 31 to 34 crimes that were committed or he's being indicted for, that means they have 31 different pieces of evidence that shows that he did this, all the way up from 1 to 34. So my question would be, why are you in an uproar when you sit there and say they're taking a misdemeanor and turning it into a felony? They do it with everybody. They do it with the street corner pharmacist. They do it with the DUI. They do it with everything. They did it with R. Kelly. They're doing it with Young Thug. They're doing it with all the people we know. When they go from a crime of doing something like trafficking, they add racketeering, going across state lines. They bring all these things into the equation. But you just admitted, Lindsey Graham, that Donald Trump did commit a crime. You just don't want him to be charged for the fullest extent of the crime. You want him charged with the minimal amount of the crime that he committed. I'm just putting it out there. James Battle, Lindsey Graham didn't say a word when Michael Cohen went to prison for the exact thing Trump isn't being indicted for. Not a word. Thank you. I'm glad you brought that up, because what people are trying to overlook is the fact that Michael Cohen went to jail on a federal charge for what Donald Trump is being charged with. And if everybody remembers correctly, and I want to get this right, my nose itching, y'all excuse me. I want to get this right. When Michael Cohen was charged and went to jail, in the documents that charged him, there was something that they said co-conspirator 1, co-conspirator number 1, which everybody at the time identified as Donald J. Trump. So these charges shouldn't be a shock to anybody. And it's not double jeopardy for what he's being charged with, because he was not charged. His lawyer was charged. His fixer was charged. And the part that everybody don't want to talk about is the fact of this. Snakes. Because when you look at the big picture, Michael Cohen went to jail for defending Donald Trump. Now he's out of jail and is the lead witness against Donald Trump. And they try to minimize what Michael Cohen has to say because he is considered a convicted felon. But one thing that's getting lost in this mix, and I seen this come up the other day, is that the other person who took the fall for Donald J. Trump, Alan Weisselberg, who is currently sitting in Rikers Island serving his time. This week, Mr. Alan Weisselberg is no longer being represented by the lawyers that Donald Trump's organization was providing him with. See how the tables have turned? Michael Cohen was the fixer. Alan Weisselberg was the money man. They both have done time. Who do you think they're going to be more loyal to? At this point, they ain't got nothing to lose. They have nothing to lose. They've been convicted. They're considered a felon. They've lost their rights. They won't be able to vote. There's a whole lot of things included when you're being a felon. And Donald Trump had the opportunity to pardon Michael Cohen. Let me say that one more time. Donald Trump had the opportunity to pardon Michael Cohen. Donald Trump and his attorney general at the time kept Michael Cohen in jail longer, putting him in a longer sentence in solitary confinement because he was writing a book. I don't have to lie on you. If I'm Michael Cohen, I don't have to lie on you. I just lay the evidence out that got me convicted because it was all done because of you. So the question would be, when a person sits in front of a grand jury or a trial jury, and they've been convicted or they've served time and everything, because they've been convicted of a crime, and I've always had a problem with this, because they've been convicted of a crime, why does the facts that they may have and what they say become minimized because they've been convicted of a crime? Because at the end of the day, truth is truth. And if I have the truth and I present the truth, because I'm a convicted felon, it doesn't hold any weight. Something I've always been told, and something I said, and I probably fit the description at one time, don't y'all judge me. Two people will always tell you the truth. A child and a drunk. I was a child at one time. I ain't gonna say I was a drunk, but I did used to drink a lot. And a child and a drunk, alcoholic, whatever you want to call them, will tell you the truth because of what they're drinking is truth serum. Alcohol is truth serum. Alcohol tell on yourself. So someone that feels that they were wronged, you think they're just not going to tell the truth? Because whatever they did to defend you may be one thing, but if they going down, everybody going down. That's the way we used to see it. There is no loyalty amongst thieves. I'm sorry, there is none. We've seen it in movies. We've seen it on the streets. We've seen it in our neighborhoods. We've seen it in our families. There is no loyalty amongst thieves. I don't care how you look at it. It is what it is. Because the bottom line is, if we rob a store together, and I get caught, and I'm looking at 40 years, and they say, well, if you tell us who was with you, we can reduce it to about 10. 30 years different. I'm gonna tell you, everybody was with me. You call me what you want. Call me what you want. But you won't call me a 40-year convicted felon. You might call me a 10-year, but you won't call me a 40-year. Because the same way we did the crime together, we're going to do the time together. That's just me. Call me what you want, but I'm just telling you what it is. Call me a sellout. I am not taking a fall for everybody when we was all involved. That's just me. It's just me. Now, you say what you want to say, but that's just me. Call me what you want. But if anybody else out there was in the same situation, you cannot tell me honestly that you wouldn't tell it. And if you wouldn't tell it, and they offer you 40 or 30 or 10 for telling you who else was with you, you a new fool. I said it. You a new fool. I'm sorry. If we were smart enough to commit the crime together, then we dumb enough to do the time together. Because I guarantee this, you can say what you want. I said I would tell. Somebody else will say, I wouldn't tell until they're in that situation. And you'd be surprised. They'll tell on you. They'll tell you the first time they stole something. They'll tell about things that they did 10 years ago. We seen it on the first 48. And I know I'm going off a little bit, but we seen it on the first 48. They get a guy in that room. He in there. They trying to get stuff out of him. They ask him if he's hungry, if he wants something to drink. Next thing you know, they come back. He eating Popeyes, drinking orange soda and everything. And he telling everything. Everything. Telling on his mama. It's done as a comedic skit. But there's truth about this. It is what it is. Phil McCurdy, happens all the time. That's coming from a law enforcement officer here. I don't tell you nothing that I wouldn't do. I'm going to do it. I'm going to tell it. You ain't even got to give me a Popeye. You ain't got to give me Popeye. All you got to do is tell me that I ain't got to do them extra 30. As long as I ain't got to do no extra 30, I'll tell you everything you want to know. I'll tell you shit I did when I was 10. It's about self-preservation. It's about survival. Just saying. I know I went off a little bit, y'all, but I'm just saying. Pay attention to all this stuff going on around you. We're going to find out Tuesday. But as I mentioned before, be safe out there because you got some crazy people out there that are going to strictly take this person's side, not because they believe in what he's doing, just because. Just because. You ready? Let's get into this. Mind, body, and soul. Mind, body, and soul. It's the year 2023. Oh man, we 4 months in, y'all. 4 months into 2023. And this year it's all about getting back to being you, being the best you can be. Not what everybody wants you to be, not who you thought you were, but being who you were born to be. Today's mind, body, and soul is a quote. And it's simply this: it's okay to outgrow people. It's okay to outgrow people. See, there's a stigma that we have in life. Let's just be real, in life. That we have to have a certain amount of loyalty to people in spite of the fact that we may not be on that same level anymore. We may not have the same mindset. We may not have. People grow. And I say this in relationships as well. And when we talk relationships, as friendships, anything across the board that deals with family, spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever you may think about. Sometimes we outgrow each other. Some people grow together. Some people grow apart. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because what we find out in life is as we grow, as our experiences, as our life comes at us fast, there's certain things that are going to make you evolve a lot faster than the other folks. And it's not saying that you think that you're better than them. Let's clear that up. Outgrowing someone does not mean that you feel you're better than them. Outgrowing them can be anything from the mentality of where you are and where you're trying to go. Everything from the fact of where you are, you may be taking a different path where you're strictly on this path of finding God, being closer to God. And you've outgrown these people because what your vision is of what you want to accomplish and where you're trying to go can be different. Doesn't make you better, doesn't make them less. What it means is there's something in you that's burning that you want to find out what your full potential is in this life. A lot of people take offense when you outgrow them. Let's just be straight across the board. There are many folks that will take offense to the fact that you've decided to take a different route, or you decided to go a different way, or you decided to follow a different path than who you used to be. It's not that you've become a different person. Your vision is different. Your focus is different. What you are trying to do in this life has changed. And the bottom line is sometimes those that we had in the beginning may not grow at the same rate that we're growing. Now, when I say you outgrow people, it's okay to outgrow people. That's not saying that you got to treat them bad or anything like that. The vision's different. Sometimes you got to distance yourself in order to find what your growth pattern is. And it's not minimizing what they may be in store for. Because let's be real now. Most of the time, when people say that they're outgrowing somebody, you don't look at yourself as the person that someone has outgrown from. Oh, I stepped on some toes there. Watch me now. We don't recognize that people have outgrown us. We only look at it where we've outgrown them. The reality of it is someone in your circle, someone who is friends with you, someone who was probably a childhood friend of yours growing up, has outgrown you. The question would be, do you receive it or do you reject it? And when I say, do you receive it or reject it, do you get an attitude? Because this person has decided to go and move on to a different part of their life without you? Or do you look at it and say, I've had to do the same thing. I understand. I receive what you're doing. Good luck in your journey. Nah, we don't do that. We take offense to it. But as soon as somebody takes offense to you growing, you get an attitude. Because the first mindset is that when someone gets an attitude because you're growing or you've outgrown them, is now you think you're better than them, which is nothing close to what the case is. It's okay to outgrow people. And it's not about the growth. It's about how you portray that growth. It's about how you communicate the fact that you've outgrown this person. And you don't have to say it that way, but there's certain conversations that you have with people that will let them know I'm elevating now. I can't continue doing what I've been doing. We do it in all relationships. And it's nothing against the person you've outgrown. It's more about you becoming better than you were yesterday, which is what we always focus on this show. Being better than you were yesterday and becoming who you're supposed to be tomorrow. That's it. Stop taking offense when people no longer have you in their lives to the same extent that you think they should. And just accept the fact that maybe this person's outgrown me, because there's people that I've outgrown. Receive it. Stop rejecting it. It's a part of life. It's a part of growth. It's part of evolution. It's okay to outgrow people. Family, friends, spouse, significant others. Hey, happens every day. Happens every day. Receive it. Stop rejecting it. I appreciate everybody tuning in this morning. Hey, Saturday mornings, baby. That's what we do. Next week, I got one for you. Next week will be the first installment of the Speak on the Show presents Barbershop Talk. We're going to do it next week. I got 3, a possible 4 that are going to be on with me next week, and we're going to chop it up, and we're going to do some mansplaining from a barbershop type of atmosphere. It ain't going to be in the barbershop, but we're going to have barbershop talk like you would hear on a Friday night or a Saturday morning. You go in the barbershop when all the fellas in there talking. And I haven't given these guys that have volunteered any idea on what the topic's going to contain on this first show. We're going to come in and we're going to chop it up and we're going to talk about some things from a mansplaining point of view. That's what we're going to do. So anybody that's volunteered already, look out for my phone call coming to you. Anybody that still wants to join, send me a message. Send me a message through Facebook or shoot me. Or if you want to be on, you got my number, 770-880-4528. Hit me up. Let me know. And let's get this thing started. All right. I appreciate everybody tuning in. As I've always, and I forgot to do this. Let me do this. Phil McCurdy. Phil McCurdy was on with me 2 weeks ago, and he was the law enforcement, retired law enforcement officer. He chimed in today. I want to let everybody know I appreciate him coming on. And I got good feedback from everybody from having him on, talking about the laws and the legal parts of things from a law enforcement perspective. Gave a lot of people a different view of what law enforcement deals with rather than being on the negative side. There was a lot of positives that came from that. So Phil McCurdy, appreciate you, my brother, for coming on. We'll have you back again. We're going to talk about some different things, as far as the judicial system, prison sentence, all that kind of stuff. So everybody enjoyed it, and I appreciate you, bro. And he'll be on with the mansplaining, the barbershop talk as well. So look for that next week. As I always say before I sign off, love yourself, love one another, keep your head up, and most definitely keep your faith in God. I'll see y'all again next week, and I'll holler at you then, and I'm out. Peace.